So hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel and another video. A video which I think I've been teasing now for probably the last 6-8 weeks. Certainly every video that I've put together over the last couple of months, I'm pretty sure that I've been referencing the fact that I have been waiting on a new time trial frame. So as is often the way with sort of supply chains, particularly supply chains when it comes to the cycle industry these days, everything always seems to get knocked back, but actually this week I had a pleasant surprise. So having first kind of hoped, expected the bike to arrive, or the frame rather, to arrive about third week of April, so just after Easter, yeah, the inevitable happened. It was knocked back to the point where I probably felt like I got a more realistic middle part of June. The surprise then this week is middle of May. Quick message, and here it is. So obviously completely covered in tape at the moment, and I'm not going to remove that because I am not building this bike. I could probably get about 50% of the way through, and then inevitably somebody who knows what they're doing would end up undoing the 50% that I've done to do things properly. So there we are. But what I thought I would do, particularly because there's not too much content around the new Trinity, which I should probably say what this is first. So Giant Trinity Disc, the long awaited, I think maybe with one exception, which I'm pretty sure is the Bianchi. In terms of the World Tour teams, the time trial frames now, this was pretty much the last one that was still a rim brake version. So this was released or announced, I guess, officially, because there was 1 or 2 people spotted on this over the probably last 9 or 10 months or so. This was announced, I think, back in February, and yeah, then just over the last sort of 6 weeks or so, they've been steadily turning up. This is the time trial version, so they also do a triathlon version, and as far as I can tell, I will sort of show you a bit more over the frame in a second, but as far as I can tell, it looks like the same frame, only with the TT version there is the sort of blanking plates, particularly for storage and things like that, and I guess hydration. Maybe some people would want that for the longer time trial events. For me, I'm going to get this built up as a one buy. Pretty much going to use my Orbea Ordu as a donor, certainly from a components point of view. I am going to change the front end, but anyway, let's not get into that because we will do a follow-up video once this is all built up. Rich at Detail Bike Tech up in Derbyshire is very kindly, not for free, but very kindly going to build this up for me. So strip down the other bike, transfer all the parts across, and then when that's done, I am scheduled to see Matt Botterill for a bike fit, and most important as a part of that, having seen him before, is to set up the front end. So very much looking forward to riding this. It's going to be a bit of a ongoing project for the next few weeks whilst bike's built up, have a holiday, stuff going on with work, all that type of thing. But with any luck, I'll get a couple of test rides on this, and then there is a Club 10 that I'm planning to do kind of first race on. Hopefully that goes well. It is a course that I know, and yeah, we'll then do another follow-up after that, sort of first ride impressions. So we'll go over the sort of what's included. Obviously the frame, I'm not going to remove this because I don't want to scratch it, and it's all got to go back in the box in a second. But in terms of initial kind of impressions of this, is it's incredibly light for a time trial bike, and yeah, okay, there's no components on it at the moment, and obviously there's no fork either, but having had the fork out of the box, also incredibly light, and actually it's the fork that I particularly like on this. So few points or a few things to call out, I guess, in terms of the frame. So I quite like this here. So this is a removable front derailleur mount, actually very similar to my Orbea where you can actually remove the mount, which I think is quite nice. I guess with some of the older frames, the way that the mount itself is actually sort of fashioned onto the frame is, yeah, you can clearly remove the front derailleur, but you're always kind of left with this pretty ugly hanger. So hopefully there's some blanking bolts as well for that. If not, then sure, we can come up with something. I alluded to already the fact that I think this is probably the same frame, so hopefully I've got this angled correctly. I have spotted that there's a blanking plate in here, and my assumption is probably, if you're using Di2, maybe the battery goes in there. Not 100% sure of that. As I've already said, I'm not actually going to build this up, so yeah, but I'll ask the questions anyway once Richard's got this all built up. I think otherwise, what I have noticed so far, and I'll also get sort of a professional's opinion on this, is I've sort of pulled back some of the tape so I can see things like the disc brake mounts, also actually looking inside of the bottom bracket shell as well. This is all, at least on the face of it, it looks incredibly clean and pretty well presented, and certainly when it's been painted, looks like it's been masked off pretty nicely as well, which I guess when you're sort of spending, you know, a decent amount of money on a frame, you kind of expect that. But yeah, having seen other videos, other manufacturers, that's not always the case. I don't know if this is kind of going to come through, but yeah, it's all nice and clean really. I'll probably try and do some close-ups of this in a second so you guys can actually see what I'm talking about. But yeah, otherwise, nice finish. Quite like black bikes, so I was pleased with this. As far as I know, there is only these black and chrome, or this black and chrome colourway actually at the moment. I am aware of one white one so far. Don't know who that's going to. But in any case, yeah, custom. So the frame. So then onto the fork, and I think this is probably, well, maybe it's not, but for me, this is actually the sort of standout thing when I first look at the bikes. I have seen a couple of these made up, one of which was the prototype, but actually if you look at the depth of this fork, and also sort of the profile of it, so if you want to, you should be able to get a nice wide tyre in there. So other than the sort of profile of it and how wide this is, and also it's pretty narrow, you know, pretty slender, hopefully that comes through even though it's covered in this tape. I'm really fighting everything here not to take all of this off, to actually have a good look at it. I know I'm going to get loads of comments to say, well, why didn't you? But yeah, I don't want to get this scratched up. But otherwise, other than the sort of profile of the fork, is actually, if you look where the disc brake mounts are, so obviously angled, and you'll see this when I make the follow-up video once it's all built up. But what it means is that the disc brake caliper actually sort of sits tucked. I'm sure there's going to be a slight protrusion either side, but it's actually far better in terms of tucking it out of the wind. Again, I guess for aerodynamics, and yeah, somebody like me can could do with every little bit of help that they can possibly get. So there. So caliper will sit on there as opposed to normally where it would sit sort of more, I guess, sort of higher up and on the back of the fork itself. But yeah. Again, if you can hopefully see, finish here, really nice and clean. I'm not going to get into all that, or facing and all that type of thing, because it's not my area of expertise. I've watched God knows how many Hambini videos, and more recently, map deck. This seems to be all the rage at the moment. I think for me, it's about looking at, you know, actually, is that full of paint? Is there a relatively clean edge on it? Because in my opinion, if neither of those two, or rather if it's not full of paint and actually the edge looks pretty clean, in my opinion, that's probably going to give you a, you know, fairly decent fighting chance of actually getting the brake to seat on there properly. Equally, if you look at the steerer, again, hopefully this comes through, really nice and clean in there. And I'm not looking at this from an engineering point of view, it's just, you know, what's the presentation like of it all, really. I mean, Giant clearly know what they're doing, but yeah, always good to see that. So lastly, because I don't really want this to be a particularly long video, and I'm not going to get all of this out, there's actually 2 boxes like this. I've literally just opened this one, had a feeling that this was going to be all the cockpit and all of that type of thing, of which, again, this was something that was sort of called out in the original release literature, is that they've really worked hard on the front end. I guess recognition from Giant that you know, a lot of the triathlon and TT bikes these days, they just sort of stick any old you know, partner, third party cockpit on them, and more often than not they end up coming off. There's little adjustment in them, the extensions, etc., not very supportive. Now I'm only going to use part of this simply because I have an alternate front end, something that I've used and that I know works for me and I know will work well with this bike, but otherwise I think if you were buying one of these, actually with all of the options and different adjustment or range of adjustment that you have within the supplied cockpit, I think you'd be onto a pretty good start. I'm going to get this all put back in the box now. Realistically, probably going to be another 3 weeks, maybe even a month now before this is built up. Almost certainly I will do a follow-up video before I've actually ridden the bike, see how it's all looking, let you know if there was any difficulties during the build. Obviously get all the components and everything that's going to go on it that's coming off of the current bike all cleaned up as well, so that yeah, it's looking the best that it possibly can, ready for test ride. And then I think from there, maybe a few weeks later, as I've done with other bikes in the past, once I've got a few rides, maybe even pre sort of first race, doing initial first impressions, and then inevitably camera's going to be stuck on the front of the bike anyway when it comes to the first race. So I hope this was helpful in some way. I appreciate pretty limited at the moment, but as I've already said, I'm really fighting actually not to remove all of the tape and have a damn good look over this, but it will be worth the wait just so that when it's built up, it's not completely scratched. So if you have any comments or questions, please do drop them in the section below. I will do my very best to answer them. Thumbs up if you like the video, subscribe if you want to see the follow-up, and thank you very much for watching.